And I think we're now live. Hello, good evening and welcome to Broadsheet on the Telly. My name is John Ryan. You're very welcome, Broadsheet commenters and readers and trolls and whatnot. We have our panel tonight, the inimitable Johnny Keenan from Kilkenny. Hello, Johnny.
How are you, John? Raining here in Kilkenny.
Raining in Kilkenny.
Another storm.
The very tanned Luke Brennan in Porto, Portugal. Hello, Luke.
Hi, I didn't realise, but yeah, a little bit of sunshine breaking out here and there in Porto.
Nice one. And are you on the Mitch from your painting class?
No, I finished up there. I just yeah, I was, I was in a bad place, but I just thought I'd leave early.
Good. Well, you're very welcome. Neil Curran, our producer, he was off last week. He's back with us, thank God, because it was so badly produced last week. Yeah.
Did you not read me notes? I wrote them with crayons and left them somewhere.
I know. Well, it was a disaster, but it's fantastic to have you back.
I don't have a tan like Luke.
No. Soon though, the sun came out today. Olga Cron is also with us from Broadsheet. Hello, Olga.
Hi, John. Hi,
hello, and Vanessa Foran, celebrity accountant in Dublin. Hello, Vanessa.
Thank you. That's more like it.
Okay. Like in the way that Gerald Keane is a celebrity lawyer. Okay, so that's.
Oh yeah, I'm the bankruptcy petitioner to the stars.
Yeah, so it's been an incredible week, really, incredible 7 days. The last time we were here, we were talking about Shayna, and the next about an hour or two later, the Irish Times had her on the front page of the paper. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that later, but the big story, the biggest story actually this week is the data, or the alleged data breach at Independent News and Media. This was security experts, computer experts were sent in by Leslie Buckley, who was the CEO at the time, Dennis O'Brien appointment at Independent News and Media, that brought them in to have what he called a cost reduction analysis. Olga, maybe you can help me out with this.
Yeah, so basically how we know about this is because there's been a leaked affidavit from that the Office of Director of Corporate Enforcement has given to the High Court. So it's basically asking for inspectors to go in and look at I&M. And so what the ODCE, or what they're claiming is that in October 2014 there was this breach, and there were, I don't know how to describe it really, unless you can read the affidavit yourself, but either backup tapes or the IT system or the network was accessed and taken out of the jurisdiction, and it was done by a company, an Isle of Man company that's owned by Dennis O'Brien. And apparently this sorry, just go back. It was a company called TDS. Yes. Which are computer specialists, and it's a specialist. They're an American company, and they've got a HQ in Wales. Yes. And they were sent in to take out the data, and to interrogate it off site. And they were paid. Their bill was paid by a company, an Irishman, Isle of Man vehicle, it's called, that's beneficially owned by Dennis O'Brien. Now, Dennis O'Brien has more Isle of Man vehicles than the TT races, but this one, the last time we had an Isle of Man vehicle was over the SiteServe shenanigans. So we'll get back to that. So in 2014, Leslie Buckley called in this company that took out data from I&M that included and the ODC is saying that there were kind of basically searches done on these 19 people, but also that there were possibly emails from the people who were former workers there, and so they're on that list of 19. We know that 3 were journalists, or are journalists. Brendan O'Connor, he's the deputy editor of the Sunday Independent in RTE, everyone knows who he is. Maeve Sheehan, who writes for the Sunday Independent, and Sam Smith, who used to write for the Sunday Independent, or for the Independent. and who would have covered the Moriarty Tribunal. And also on the list are all these former INM executives, but also, and Carl Brophy, who was former Director of Corporate Affairs there, and also
a journalist and
a former journalist, yes.
And Roy Godson, who had been
Roy Godson, former journalist.
a journalist in the 90s in the Sunday Independent, and is a PR executive and is linked to the O'Reilly family. I mean, I think they looks after Gavin and Tony.
And also then there was 2 barristers who were barristers for the tribunal at the Moriarty Tribunal.
Yeah.
So that's...
let's go back a bit. On the 23rd of March this year, then, it was this affidavit was revealed to the Independent. And, is that the first time that editorial, like Stephen Ray and management at the Indo, knew about this breach?
But the thing is, we don't know, because we haven't really, there's been no public statement as such on the matter. And it seems like even the people who were on that list
I've still not been told.
Still not been told. And he went, I mean, there was, RT did report the other day that Stephen Ray had said that the staff had been told. So the people who were on the list who are still employed were told, but people like Carl Brophy and Samantha Smith were saying that they had not been informed, and they weren't getting any information, in fact. So so when does Stephen Ray first know? I don't know, is the answer.
Just going back then, so set the scene in October 2014, Olga, when this data breach was alleged to have occurred, and what was going on at the time?
Well, October 2014, I suppose some people, not many, but some people were asking questions about, Irish Water, Siteserv and Dennis O'Brien. We had done 2 timelines on Irish Water and Dennis O'Brien and Siteserv, all those matters. One in January 2014 and one in October 2014. I know Tom Lyons was writing an awful lot about it. And this, I mean, the sale took place of Siteserv in 2012, wasn't it? And it raised eyebrows because it was a case of Dennis O'Brien owed this amount of money to Anglo, Siteserv owed this amount of money to Anglo, and yet Dennis O'Brien was able to buy Siteserv for a much cheaper rate, like debt-free, and there was also money given to shareholders, so that it raised a lot of questions at the time.
Yeah, that rang some bells today when I heard about the news talk that, there has to be something for Dennis with the Siteserv, when they were like, Siteserv was a company that it was effectively out of business and it had no right to be in business and it owed God knows how much, but the shareholders managed to get 5 million out of the deal. I think that's very important. And but there are
and when you talk about news talk, I suppose just to fill people in, like the reason that the Office of Director of Corporate Enforcement went in and looked at INM was because of a protected disclosure that was made by the former CEO of INM, Robert Pitt, who came from Tesco before that. And I don't think he was there that long, actually. But anyway, apparently he was at a meeting with the Chief Financial Officer of INM and also Leslie Buckley. And at this meeting, there was a discussion about INM buying Newstalk. But there was a dispute over how much Newstalk was basically worth.
Okay. Now Leslie Buckley, they valued it at 35 million apparently, and he valued it at 10 million.
That's right, yeah. 10, 12 million, yeah. And so there was a dispute over this, and apparently, according to the affidavit, and according to what we've been told, that Leslie Buckley kind of said to them, I think the quote was something like, sorry, I just don't want to get this wrong. So they're claiming that they were put under pressure to pay this considerably higher price, and apparently Buckley told Pitt and Preston, "Do you not get it, lads?" And also he also said something like, according to Pitt, Buckley said something that Dennis O'Brien was entitled to a reward for bailing out INM. So
right.
It was because of these comments that Pitt made his protected disclosure. And he made his concerns about this apparent need to reward Dennis O'Brien. He made this known.
Okay, well, just to go back a little bit further than that, Dennis O'Brien took control of INM. Well, he wouldn't say control, but he got a controlling share of INM in 2012. previous regime, the O'Reilly regime, Gavin was CEO and Tony had been chairman, CEO, etc. That old regime, in the interim between when Dennis bought it, there was a lot of attacks on Dennis O'Brien in the paper.
Yeah, yeah.
And
particularly in the Sunday Independent.
Yeah, of course. And to be fair, like even, it was a bit overkill. There was a lot of anti-Dennis stuff in the papers. I mean, but that is...
I think there was, remember, wasn't there one edition where someone counted there was 15 articles or something? I think it was referred to in an opinion piece today, I think.
Yeah, well, that's probably a Sunday Independent tradition that they just monster people. Like, they go kind of... they mob heavy. But so in that interim period, this... it was very, very fractious between, I guess, the O'Reilly people and the O'Brien people. And then you had O'Reilly people on the editorial side and management turning to O'Brien, becoming O'Brien people effectively. And I think they're probably a little bit exposed this week anyway, in relation to this data breach. Sorry, go on, Olga.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's the thing. I mean, we've been told that there's 19 people, but as a lot of other people have said, more learned than me, that there's obviously a lot more people involved, because if you have, searches of 19 people, but who were they in contact with, and then the number just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So, yeah, so I'd say there's a lot of people who would have been in the Sunday Independent who were thinking, well, what data was harvested or looked at or interrogated.
Well, I guess
I
guess if you've had any correspondence in that period or prior to October 2014 with any of those people on the 19, that you're probably on, they probably have access to your emails to that person at the very least.
Yeah.
Just to go back again, when Carl Brophy is sort of central to this, because he set up a company. He was director of corporate affairs. He was like Gavin's guy when Dennis was really coming in. Inching towards taking over taking over INN. Gavin and I think Carl Brophy were setting up a kind of like a
consultancy.
A resistance. No, it was they'd set up some kind of they were trying to prepare for they were trying to fend off Dennis's arrival, which didn't succeed. Once Dennis got control of or became the biggest shareholder, O'Reilly was gone. Gavin O'Reilly was gone, and Brophy was gone, and Carl Brophy set up Red Flag Consultancy, which I'm not really sure, but it's kind of PR, but it's damage limitation and crisis management, I guess.
Internationally, yeah.
Internationally, so Gavin O'Reilly is the chairman of this now. Carl Brophy runs it, and they, of course, are part of the the memory stick case that's going on.
Yes.
So you see, my belief is that these are very, very connected now, this data breach and the memory stick. And I think the memory stick seems to be some kind of red herring to cover up for the data breach, if you know what I mean. How they've got this information without... so I think that the memory stick story was invented. Sorry if this sounds convoluted.
Well,
that's just
well, yeah. I mean, I suppose we should probably explain, and I will need some help with this, John, because
sorry, is this guys? Is there on the panel? Is this very boring?
No, possibly. I think it's interesting, and it's like the pair of you have a good routine going there with like picking out the details, and it's great to get a good proper analysis. I was actually thinking during the week, it's something that the Broadsheet does very well on the site. Oftentimes, sort of, a lot of the cases you've covered of different things that are happening, you give a nice sort of
thank you, Luke.
Breakdown of, because I can see there's a lot of work goes into that to actually sort of, give the proper timeline and sort of make all the facts without sort of put too much bias in it. It's really appreciated.
Well, we hope just stop us if we're confusing anybody. Sorry, Olga, go on.
Yeah, and correct me if I get anything wrong, but basically, so Dennis O'Brien is suing Red Flag because he's alleging some sort of conspiracy against him, and he's claiming that Red Flag is behind this conspiracy against him, and it's kind of based on the fact, I think, that he got this memory stick that just apparently landed on in his office in Dublin with in an envelope with a password on it and everything, and
Chelsea 10 was the password.
Chelsea 10, yes, and on this anyway, so there's that, and basically it turns out that just before Christmas, I suppose Colm Keaveney, the former Fianna Fáil TD and Labour TD, has to be explained as well.
Okay. Yeah,
we might be confusing people.
He's another character. I mean,
there are a lot of characters.
Yeah.
But I suppose safe to say he was quite critical of Denis O'Brien and the side-serve stuff in 2015 and said so in the Dáil. But it turns out that, okay.
No, actually, just don't. No, it is interesting, but it's kind of tangential to what we're like. It just sort of adds to the confusion. So anyway, Red Flag was set up, and
we should really practice this, John.
Yeah, no. The memory stick. Why I think the memory stick is who. We're expected to believe that Denis O'Brien returns to his big office, and on this desk is an envelope which he's now lost, inside of which is a memory stick containing Helga?
Basically, clippings and articles about Denis O'Brien.
However, when Red Flag and everybody inspect this memory stick, this stuff it's a mess. It's unreadable. It's this stuff layered over it and whatnot. So it was
taken out of the jurisdiction and it was brought back all during the court proceedings. Remember?
Yeah. So, and this seems to sort of coincide with the data breach or the alleged data breach in October 2014. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I believe so. Trying to think the years. Yeah, it's the years. Yeah.
Okay.
And so. Yeah, the memory stick is just it's a bit bonkers. And I just explain the Colm Keaveney bit. Colm Keaveney is saying that it was, and this goes back to the data breach bit as well, actually, in a way, because just in relation to let's just go back for a second. The ODCE is calling for inspectors, and they're making these claims about this data breach. And apparently, just to go back to the discussion about news talks, selling news talk, the Irish Times reported yesterday, or was it today, that that once that happened, and once Pitt raised the red flag, if you like, there was supposed to be a review of this discussion. And one of the barristers who was appointed to look into that was a barrister for Declan Ganley back in relation to Moriarty. And in relation to the mobile license going to O'Brien back in the 90s. And so according to what the Irish Times have seen, Denis O'Brien stepped in and prevented him from being the barrister to look into that.
Right.
And okay, so if we just park that for a second, but in regards to Declan Ganley, Colm Keaveney has given an affidavit to the High Court to say that the person who was behind a dossier in relation to Denis O'Brien that was with Red Flag was down to Declan Ganley.
He believes it was.
He believes it was. And Declan Ganley says it wasn't. Yeah. But also there was another affidavit after Colm Keaveney's affidavit, and this was an affidavit from his former parliamentary assistant,
Alan Hines. Yeah.
Alan Hines, who said that that I think Keaveney had said to him that basically, and bear in mind, Denis O'Brien had a defamation case against Colm Keaveney, but he dropped it after Keaveney said that Declan Ganley was the man. And but apparently to Alan Hines, former parliamentary assistant, he's saying that Keaveney told him that his response to Denis O'Brien's representative when there was talk about money was, just tell me what he needs said and I'll say it.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I probably really confused everyone now. But
I think the Keaveney thing is probably a separate show on itself.
Yeah.
But
this business of the business of Red Flag compiling a dossier and someone being behind it, and the memory stick, this is what's being alleged. They're saying that there's no such thing. Yeah. So that's why I'm trying to maybe explain.
Well, I mean, if you had all this information from a data breach, hypothetically, if you were, if you breached somebody and to cover that up, you would need something elaborate, like a USB memory stick story, I guess. But I have to say, Once again, there's a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of ineptness going around for a lot of allegedly very bright people. Can I just ask you, Vanessa, what's your thoughts on this? You were looking at the corporate governance aspect of it.
Well, I just honed in on that rather than the personalities, because I suppose I'm a chair myself of an institution.
A credit union.
Well, the obligations are the same, John.
Oh no, I wasn't. I was just.
But I suppose the first thing is that there's only 5 on the board, and we remarked on this before, that's risk of being easily influenced. The other thing was that Dennis is being introduced as being the dominant force all the time, and I did read somewhere that he was the majority shareholder. He's not. He's the biggest shareholder. Yeah. So there's still 70% votes, shareholders' votes against him. So if they were to call an EGM, they could do something there. The other thing was that when the dispute over the sale of News Talk, the value of News Talk, and I mean the difference in the two teams, like it's nearly 20 million. There's over 20 million of a difference. Yeah. And it's not like 20 million between 100 million and 120 million. We're talking between somewhere between 12 and 15 million and 35 million. I mean, that's an extraordinary difference. It's almost like 200% of a difference.
And Leslie,
so that doesn't. And of course, there's everything that Olga said there about the price was an insult to
Dennis.
And the firm that came up with that value is IBI, and they seem to do, their corporate finance negotiators. They do have an impressive background now. They did the deal for when he bought Topaz, when Mr. O'Brien bought Topaz from IBRC, and they seem to do a lot of work for Bank of Ireland. They seem to have acquired quite a few local newspapers or negotiated deals with local newspapers as well.
So they were the ones who valued it at 35 million.
Yeah, 35. Actually, the numbers I was given was between 30 and 35 million, and Davies said somewhere not more than 14 million.
Davies Stockbrokers, right?
Yeah. And but they proposed going in at around the 12 million, and the dispute then started because the chair was looking. They were agreeing in and around the 26.8 million, and this is where the CEO and the CFO said no, absolutely not, and. So a review was actually done before they went to corporate enforcement.
But it never came to anything.
Well, you see, this is what happens with internal reviews. It's very similar to the one that we would have seen, the HR review in the gate.
Yeah.
Particularly with a small board, okay? And so they don't have power to kind of demand evidence or swear affidavits or anything like that. So when that collapsed, they did say there was conflicting evidence. It was a PwC.
Stark contrast.
Yeah, that was So that's obviously when the CEO went to corporate enforcement, and that is exactly what he should have done, because there was direct interference at governance level into the operations of the company. And this isn't just any company. Besides, it's public service mandate to the community at large. It's also quoted on the the Irish Stock Exchange. So that brings with it a whole new set of regs and reporting guidelines. So from the boring side of the compliance, the CEO or the CFO, both of them had to do something, because they were being forced to squander shareholders' money. But the shareholders still there's still 70% shareholding votes that aren't Dennis O'Brien's. Now, maybe he can influence them. Maybe he has them by proxy. You know, that would be a question to ask. But the team negotiating for Dennis actually includes a gentleman with a name. He's in the UK. His name is Shorthouse, Damien Shorthouse, and he has an interesting similar story to Dennis in that when he was part of the team that acquired Channel 5 in the UK, it was quite a similar story afterwards, like the purchase of the mobile license here.
Right.
In that there was an investigation and they were allowed to change their tender after the deadline came down, and Virgin provoked an inquiry, but they still got to hang on to their license. So there was a similar path walked there between them. There's probably a lot more, but that's
interesting. I didn't know that. So is everybody kind of clear on this? I mean, what's happened? Like Johnny, do you understand what's happened here? More to the point, does anybody care as much as me and all?
I know, I care.
Not alone do I understand it, but I have actually known this for a long time.
That they were reading our emails.
No,
well,
not reading
that's
emails.
A different
that's
story,
what I want
think.
to. Yeah, well, it's part of it. 19 prominent journalists and newspaper people have had their email hacked. So that's as many as we know.
All right. Sorry, Johnny, can I just get this clear, right? Data was removed from INM and given to a firm in the Isle of Man.
No. A firm in Wales.
A firm in Wales, sorry, excuse me, but it's owned by an Isle of Man registered company.
No, it's not.
That data. But
no, it's not, Vanessa. Just establish this. This company is an American company that's based in Wales. It's HQ'd in Wales.
Okay.
They were paid by an Isle of Man company, which is beneficially owned by Dennis O'Brien. But the company in Wales, they're computer specialists. They took the data out of the country.
Okay, that point there, the data. What data was taken? Was it operational data? Was it finance and HR data? Was it payroll data?
Well,
was it just the whole whole server, including their emails server?
Well, for instance, one of the people on the 19, a man called Joe Webb, one of the computer specialists was boasting that he had located 34,000 emails from this guy since 1999. So that was just
he said. Yeah.
Yippee, he wrote. This is to Leslie Buckley. So just one guy, there's 34,000.
Okay, so it was just email data they took then, communication.
Well, I guess if you had like email attachments and stuff like that, and
yeah, but so they didn't access HR files or operational stuff, like finance files or
I'm not too sure.
Who the creditors were. And
Vanessa, we haven't seen the affidavit, but what it does say is that there's an Excel spreadsheet with the 19 names, which they can't really explain. Is that right, Olga?
Yeah, exactly. But it would seem that there was kind of some sort of searches gone through the data. So it's like they got the data, and then they had this list, and then they were searching through the data using this list.
What would the phrase is that it's like interrogated, the data is interrogated. So,
but also remember, because we haven't seen the affidavit and we're just getting drip feed mainly from the Independent. Yeah. So who knows?
You see, it still doesn't make sense to me. If they were reading the emails, they also needed the email passwords.
No, they would have access to all those emails. And
it seems there was a dump of the whole email server. And if you have, if you're able to write the correct queries and you have access, you can just basically parse that for particular search terms or mails.
Okay, so it was definitely just the email server they took then.
As far as I know.
Okay, no, that was important, because if they were able to get operational information, particularly back office stuff like finance records, who their suppliers were, who their creditors were, what they were selling advertising for, that's insider trading, and that's where different law steps in.
Vanessa, according to to what we gathered, they hacked their own ad people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were hacking their own ad people, their own PR people, their own journalists,
Yes, but
their own executives, their own
Yeah, but you see, if
communications consultants were outside of the company.
Yeah, no, but you see, the reason for that information, say contacting their ad people or their PR people, was they were getting advance information of promotions and stuff, or perhaps a spend from the HSE that the particular person could then give to HR, the marketing teams in other owned entities, and try and trump the INM teams.
Sorry, no. They, for whatever reason, they allegedly hacked their own ad people, Vanessa, their own journalists, their own staff. So the information they were getting, they were, about their own firm.
Yes, but for me, was it for use by that shareholder's other interests? What it was for the benefit of? That's insider trading. That's corporate espionage.
No. I think you're on the wrong beam there, Vanessa.
Well, no, I think Vanessa has a point in that. I think when potentially something can be used in those ways, like someone who shouldn't have access. So you sort of might fall foul of things in those areas. Is that what you're saying, Vanessa?
Yeah, because if they have access to sort of strategic future plans
by their own people.
Of the marketing team. No, hang on, no. But they're not his people. He's just a shareholder in the company that these people work for. Yeah, and he's gaining access
Vanessa,
to information that he can give to other companies.
No.
Or governments.
No, Johnny and Vanessa, sorry. That's not really what's going on here. Leslie Buckley called in this company. Now, he was the CEO of INM.
So, no, he wasn't. He was the chair.
Yeah, no, he was the chair. Robert Pitt was okay. So he called in this outside company to affect this data, not to allegedly affect this data breach. He said it was over comparing some cost reduction exercise, seeing if this company would be, good value. I'm completely kind of lost here. The information that you're saying that they would like, they would have that information anyway. That's just commercial stuff that they were dealing with, advertising and stuff like that. I think.
Yeah, but hang on a second, that may not be reported to board.
Yeah, I mean that can be the case. The stuff that for particular reasons, so you may have someone who is in a position in a company who isn't given access to information. I mean, a good example is emails. Just because you're the CEO of a company doesn't mean you can look at everyone's email.
But can I just say that? So there's two names on the list that are barristers.
Yeah,
they were barristers for the tribunal of the Moriarty Tribunal.
That's very serious.
Sam Smith. So I think that.
He was effectively attempting to bug the Moriarty Tribunal's team.
No, well, okay. No, we're sort of losing track here a bit. The 19 names that are on the list, they were sort of given special. They were email hits was the phrase used. Now, these are all people who had fallen foul of Dennis O'Brien. I mean, you got Sam Smith, are very much associated with Gavin O'Reilly or the O'Reilly thing, so. Just to go back, the memory stick thing. It's our theory, our feeling, belief that that was just a red herring to cover up the data breach, the alleged data breach. Is that would you agree with that, Olga?
I think yeah, because I mean the memory stick thing doesn't make sense, and then I'll say that's all I'll say. Yeah.
And then the purpose of the data breach was not commercial thing, Vanessa?
No.
It wasn't sort of to
No.
get commercial.
No, but
edge.
yeah, but it could have been. It could have been, and then you were into different areas of treatment for for the authorities. So it's worth finding that out.
Well, I don't know what you're asking us to find out, though, Vanessa.
No, but you're saying it wasn't. So I'm not asking to look into it, John. I'm just out making sure that the data wasn't accessed to get some competitive advantage for another activity they're involved in.
But it's their commercial. They would know about the commercial activity that's going on in their own company.
Who's they?
They being the CEO, they being the chairman, Leslie Buckley.
No, he wouldn't. He's not involved in operations. He's not allowed to get involved in operations. CEO reports him on a monthly basis at board meetings, and they provide management reports. Day-to-day runnings are future plans. They agree a budget, they agree a strategic plan, but day-to-day minutiae, day-to-day activity, future plans, lockdown stories, lockdown plans, private negotiations with an advertiser and stuff like that. The board only find out about that afterwards. This is what I'm telling you, John. There's a very distinct line between board governance and operations.
Yeah, but
very distinct line.
But what is this?
One does not get involved in the other.
I know, but I think you're just trying to make a point without making a point here, Vanessa.
No, I'm just well, maybe I am. Sorry, folks, maybe I am. But I'm just saying that if you thinking that accessing operational information, particularly if they're talking to advertisers or planning promotions, if you don't think that's not of interest to other media companies, you're bloody mistaken, John.
But they are the same media company.
Who? IMN is one company. There's other companies.
I mean, I think what Vanessa's saying is there's the likes of News Talk who are, might have shared
Communicorp.
But
the Irish Times. Murdoch.
But why would Dennis O'Brien give Murdoch information? Like, Vanessa, do you understand?
But maybe the data company wanted to sell it. Because we know 4 other people have it, or 3 other organisations have had access to it.
That's the big one, Vanessa. Third-party data.
Okay.
What if they were working on a huge story?
Yeah.
Vanessa, I don't think it's for commercial advantage in this instance. I don't think this is corporate espionage. They're their own staff who were part of an older regime. They've come in, and there's this huge conflict and paranoia and.
Yeah, like remember Dennis O'Brien wrote himself in the Irish Times about how he was subject to, abuse. Talking about the Sunday Independent, he was,
a campaign of vilification and stuff like that in the paper. So, whilst Vanessa, what you're saying is probably entirely correct. It's not really the focus of what's going on here, I don't think.
Can I just say, I think Vanessa's making a very good point there, that there are a myriad reasons why, you don't let data out of the system. Some of them are to do with sort of things like insider trading or whatever, but basically you don't let data out, and these are reasons why. But I know you're trying to make another more central point to the whole thing.
Yeah. Well,
I think in the context of everything that was been going on with Dennis O'Brien, it would look like it's not that, and it's something completely different. I think,
Yeah,
I'd be kind of worried in relation to if you ever wrote a letter in anger at the sendo or something, might have your email address.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. There's it.
Where's that information going, like?
Can I just say, I think the Dennis O'Brien stuff, I think that he wanted to know what people were saying about him and who was saying it. Allegedly, absolutely allegedly. Even if they weren't, but it would seem that that's what this was about, allegedly.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Vanessa. Did you want to add anything?
I think the data that has been taken out and is now in other people's hands, I think it has a lot more use and has a lot more value than just knowing what so-and-so was saying about so-and-so. I don't think that's the big problem at all. I think the big problem is the breach in one way. I think if there was competitive advantage used, I think personally I think the chair has some serious questions to answer. He was clearly trying to influence the board and the CEO to overpay for a purchase. Now we could talk about whether News Talk was worth that kind of money. But yeah, I think that the whole investigation is going to start and stop around the chair's behaviour and how he was able to impose such numbers and talk to operational staff that way. I think that's where the focus of the corporate enforcement's work is going to be.
To talk about?
To focus on the influence the chair had, because he had left. He had been sacked and then came back in as chair. He had left the board and came back in.
He stepped down there in just March, just gone by, just March 1st.
No, but he stepped down prior to that. And then when there was shares sold and acquired, he came back in.
Okay.
He'd come and gone on that board.
Who Leslie Buckley had?
Yeah.
Okay, well maybe, would you check up on that, Vanessa, and just...
Yeah, I think I have notes on it here. But I think corporate enforcement can only focus on that. With regard to the data, well, they can go to court and get affidavits and they can get
they're applying. Well, they're applying for 2 inspectors, Vanessa, to go and look into INM. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, but those inspectors can only go back to court and get an order for data to come in.
What?
Their remit is quite tight.
Mm-hmm.
If they think there has been corporate misconduct going on, that's their area that they can pursue. But if there's been data breaches, well, first of all, the external auditors will need to be known, because now there's a risk to the company. There's an operating risk. Because if you think of, if people will be able to sue, they have to provide for all those potential cases now.
Yeah.
So maybe the company's at risk.
Well,
maybe it's not liquid enough to withstand an onslaught of legal cases. Because if it's data breach, they're not insured for that. Well, if data was taken out of the firm knowingly and handed to somebody else, it wasn't an error. It wasn't human error. It wasn't like they had flooding and their servers broke down.
Yeah, but Vanessa, we know all this.
Well, I'm saying maybe the company's at risk. So often corporate enforcement is only going to look at the misbehavior.
I know, but yeah, but
the data and the email thing is different. That's going to be managed and pursued differently.
Okay.
Good job. Hello.
Hey. Terribly confusing, Vanessa. Really, we'll have to untangle this in some meaningful way.
Can we start again and go over it again?
Neil, are you any wiser, or did I think Vanessa?
I was waiting for Vladimir Putin to get involved.
Yeah, Chelsea 10. You know, connection there somewhere.
Can I give you another little nugget, by the way? No. One of the non-execs in there has had a company heavily invested by Dennis O'Brien.
What hospital is that?
No, one of the non-execs in INN, in that organisation, has had a company heavily financed by a Dennis O'Brien-owned entity.
Okay. Neil, your entertainment choice for this weekend.
John, they're very poor.
Perhaps you can.
I mean, something stronger than a cup of tea after that, John.
Okay, I'll do that.
Well, we've actually feck all stuff to talk about in the entertainment slot this week. That's why John's fecked off. But I'll tell you what's out. And I'll caveat this by saying I know very little about these because I've been off the grid. But the new releases, there's 3 new releases in the movies this week. There's an Irish film called Michael Inside, which is directed and written by Frank Berry. Now, it's a new Irish film. Does anyone want to guess what it's about?
Prison Break. Or prison.
No, you're getting warmer there. What's most popular Irish stuff about nowadays? Drugs and gangs and stuff like that.
Line dancing. Country music dancing.
Drugs, line dancing, and rhinoceroses. So anyway, it's I know very little about it. I wasn't even aware it was coming out this week. The invites to the premieres, it was one of the ones I couldn't make this week. I gave the tickets to Luke instead, but he was in Portugal, so he couldn't go see it either. So I know very little about it. But it stars Donald Flynn, Laura Lawler, Roddy, and lots of other Irish actors who you may or may not have seen before. Other film coming out, there's one, and this is an award-winning film called 100 or Beats Per Minute, BPM, directed by Robin Campillo. Again, I missed the premiere of this. I missed the press screening of this because I was busy showing Vanessa how to use Google Hangouts. But this one has won a number of awards, and I think it's on a limited release. But yeah, go check that out because it's probably good and subtitled. And then the last one is a film called Love, Simon, directed by Greg Berlanti, and this also gets favorable reviews. It's family drama. What more do you need to know? Family drama. But yeah, there's not a lot of big ones out bar those. It's kind of more of the smaller hits because all the focus is on Spielberger's new film Ready Player One. Now, has anyone gone to see Ready Player One? I reckon Luke, that'd be up your alley.
Well, don't see. I read the book, and the book's amazing. It's a good sort of intergalactic, intermatrix sort of romp through like the 80s nostalgia thing. So it's got everything, sort of in terms of keep me interested as a book. Spielberg, being at the helm, obviously would make you want to go to it too. So I'm looking for. I mean, the reviews haven't been that great, but apparently it's doing well at the box office. But,
it's doing well. It's been getting a mix of reviews now, to be fair. And I've heard people say that Spielberg needs a bit of a hit. But I mean, I guess he's the man for the job. But I imagine, there's only so much you can do in a book that's about a topic such as nostalgia. I mean, the kid in it drives the DeLorean for Back to the Future, and he's pals with the Iron Giant and stuff, so I imagine it works better on screen.
Well, I think they're sort of just notes along the way. Really, the story is actually and it's a very well constructed, simple sort of narrative that I mean, it's the same way Star Wars was. It was a good sort of story that well told, and hopefully it's turned into a film.
Yeah. So that's one that's going to do billions in the box office and make everyone happy. Oh, John, you're back. We're just talking about you. Which of the 4 picks, John, are you going to go see this weekend?
I'm going to see Michael Inside.
Yeah.
You know more about it than I do.
That's our national release. 32 cinemas are going to show that tomorrow. I think that's a rare enough situation for an Irish film. So it's getting a nationwide release. It's actually quite interesting. It probably has all of those drugs and gang, but I'm not. I think the core of the story is about a teenager who holds on to drugs for his friend's older brother, and basically the story is what happens to him in prison, and how he turns out on the other side. So it's kind of interesting to see something in relation to someone going to prison by a situation that's kind of beyond his control, and to see how the story develops as he comes back out from.
Have you heard any reviews on it yet, Johnny?
Well, Neil, we're giving away free tickets. We're giving away free tickets for a screening at the IFI tomorrow night with a Q&A with the director, and so there'll be tickets on the site tomorrow.
You heard it here first.
And sorry, I was just going.
Viewers can't take part in that, John. Is that right?
I beg your pardon?
People who work in Broadsheet can't take part in that.
We have a
just to make it clear to the audience that it's all above board here in Broadsheet.
no. There's no corrupt practices in relation to any of our
Good to know,
competitions.
Derek. Good to know.
No, there's no winning cars or.
None of us have any involvement in credit unions. What?
But I think you can't win with it.
No. So Michael Inside then it's open at 22 cinemas, isn't that right? And Johnny,
32 or 34.
Wow, that's
Can you
fantastic.
believe some counties have more than one cinema?
Johnny,
Where
I'm
are these
losing you a bit.
places?
What's
I'm
that?
just saying, it's amazing. There's a 34 cinema release. So somewhere, one county has 2 cinemas. The lucky suckers. Amazing.
I get very cynical about Irish movies, though. Like, do you not find
I
that?
know, dude.
No, I'm not. Bear with
This
me
is
now.
new
Do you
guy.
not find that?
This is a new guy. This is a new guy. It's not Jim Sheridan and Into the West. None of that crap.
He's a teacher out in one of the film schools in Dublin. No, I haven't seen it, and I know very little about it, so I'm not talking about that. But we have this problem in Ireland that we make a lot of Irish films, like films that are inherently selling their Irishness, and we see less films that are just happen to be set in Ireland. It's almost like the films, we have less, I guess, internationally acclaimed films because they're so inward focused. That's what I find with a lot of our films.
Can I give you the exception, Neil? The lobster, the lobster, the one with Colin Farrell. That was set in Ireland, but it was basically like it could have been Hungary or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean that's what works. Yeah, I mean once is the same. It's just a love story, and Sorry, Johnny.
Yeah, no, you're right. I take your point. Sorry to cut across you. Yeah. But that kind of Paddy Wackery's gone. This is a new director. I forget his name. But the amount of research he put into this film, like he was doing workshops in mental health for teenagers out in Tala, and then he just, was created something from that project. But all this time he was learning to invest his time in relation to subject matter for this one. So Michael Inside is about a guy who goes to prison. So he interviewed, I think, prisoners in and who came out of jail for the last 15 months. So, he's kind of fairly meticulous in relation to his subject matter. So that's the new kind of director and screenwriter, that's coming from the colleges around. I don't know exactly where he went to college, but in the same week, where Film Base is gone into liquidation. So it's kind of ups and downs for the Irish film industry. It had its golden age, I think, in the 90s, but Michael D is still knocking around. So the amount of landscape that's in Ireland to really buy into how it can be one of the biggest generators of the economy, all the art forms, in fact, but specifically film, because I think the grants that's given to them as well, but the push on of young Irish film directors. I wouldn't agree with you in that, Neil, that they're kind of doing something to fly Ireland Inc. There's an awful lot of good stuff that's not getting released.
I don't mean Ireland Inc. I don't mean
Yeah.
Ireland Inc. But like it just feels what a lot of films can feel, that it's very Irish inward focusing. Like the joke is there for us as a nation, as opposed to stories that just happen to be set here. Like if you take Once, for example, it's essentially it's a tale of two people, their love for music, and it could be set in any other country in the world. The Irish element of the film is not an essential part of it.
No.
I mean, the exception is probably take The Snapper, which is very much an Irish. I don't know how well that did internationally, but those Roddy Doyle books. But I suppose The Commitments does have I guess some level of acclaim abroad. But yeah, that's just my opinionated opinion.
Well, there's a clear reason for all that, I mean, when you're trying to, ultimately to make a film, you have to sort of sell it first, and there's a ready-made market for anything Irish in America, and I mean, even I don't know if you've seen other YouTube. There's like YouTube channels, based in Dublin, and the whole basis of their content, their output is, Irish people like eating American snacks and watching American TV programs, and just sort of people will get this kick. And I mean, I was talking.
You're talking about Leather Jacket Guy.
Well, like there's a crowd up in Smithfield now, and I know they have a whole production company that's been going for 2 years now, and they have like 10 people employed off the back of Irish people eating Twizzlers and whatever else, that's and you can't do that when you're in Uzbekistan. We have this advantage that like there's an interest in Ireland and Irish things, and that's the reason why. Could I just make one other point there on the film industry that although it's doing well now, I'm hearing this secondhand. I have heard that there are issues at the moment within the industry with like there are some strikes. There's sort of issues with sort of construction and sort of union issues and whatever, and apparently that's causing a bit of a problem. So it's something that's going on.
There's a movie being made at the John Player factory. I think it's Western, is it? And there was a protest yesterday.
Yeah. I think it's to do with the people working construction on the like on movies and TV stuff, and they want to be paid normal contract rates and have permanent jobs, but the nature of the movie and film industry in Ireland is not like that. So it's,
all the vendors.
Yeah. No.
I don't care about those fucking artists. I want to get paid.
Yeah. But apparently, it's putting a lot of shows that are trying to come to Ireland in jeopardy. So.
Well, that's so. Neil, is that all the entertainment for this weekend?
That is, unless anyone there's anything else that jumps out, but we're kind of in midterm, so they can come to the end of midterm. So. Yeah,
tell me about this week, because just briefly, it was only today that I realized nobody's at work.
Excuse me.
But essentially, like we were pummeling out the posts, and I felt there was a kind of a flatness this week, and then I realized, okay, nobody's working.
Yeah, kids are still on holidays.
But winter hasn't gone yet, John. We're on the edge of despair in Ireland at the moment.
Well, here's the thing.
What are you saying, John? That there's not much hope now because people aren't working.
No, just
people are on the site and when they're at work, and not when they're at home.
Well, there's a different mood. There's a different mood.
I really think that. I think that's how the country is run.
Well, I tell you,
it is true. It is true.
I've often said it. If a market research company wanted to come and talk to us, because we could explain that, like, do not promote anything on Monday. Don't promote anything on Monday, because don't do anything really Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe start
Thursday.
Thursday afternoon was the time when everyone's liver is back to functioning.
You're stereotyping us, John. You're stereotyping us.
Broadsheet on the Telly's prime time for any advertisers looking at it.
Well, if you want to do anything, like we've often said it, that if you put up a picture of a bunny rabbit on Monday morning, you've got like people just like viciously, how dare, what is this? What kind of site is this? And then if you put it up on Friday morning, it's like,
don't.
The bunny on the Friday.
That should be a thing.
Was it just me? I didn't see any Easter bunnies last Sunday.
Can I just
Come here, John, who won the chocolate? Because I was nominated for the chocolate hamper.
Oh, yeah, the chap who used his children to win.
Okay.
What? The man who exploited his own children.
That's what they're there for.
That's
a
great job of that. Exploitation.
Come here, Neil. Do you know I'm a devil for talking about movies I've never seen, but I know everyone in them, right? I watched one of them last week. I think it was either this weekend gone or the weekend before. Do you know which one I watched?
Go on.
If I just say the dude, man.
20 years old.
And did you like it?
I'd never seen it before. I knew everybody. It was like Star Wars and Willy Wonka. I knew everyone in it, but I'd never seen them. So I watched it. And do you know what? I watched it 3 times since. It's brilliant.
Is this
30 years old.
Yeah.
Vanessa, how could I forget? There was some big Dwayne Johnson news today. Did you hear it?
I said no. I said no to him.
But besides that, obviously,
I wasn't moving to America.
That'll be in the Mirror tomorrow. Now, Dwayne Johnson, he's one of the world's nicest gents, but he has this grudge with, he has this disagreement with Vin Diesel, and so he invited Vin Diesel into his trailer so that they could chat it out. And
match tattoos.
Yeah, they rub tattoos to see who'd stick, and The Rock was trying to be nice, and he said, "Well, we've agreed to disagree," but he hasn't said anything pleasant about it. So if we're holding out for another Fast and Furious film with Dwayne Johnson, may not happen, I'm afraid.
What's the nature of the feud, Neil?
Well, we don't know. They're putting it down to creative differences.
Mm-hmm.
Creative differences. We could have a Steve McQueen, Paul Newman thing going on between them.
Why did you just say they were fighting, Neil?
Exactly.
My muscles are bigger than yours.
Why couldn't you say I'm bolder than you are?
No, plug. Did you hear, lads, that Roseanne's coming back?
It's back.
Johnny, Roseanne is back.
It's back and it's in hot water, Johnny. It's in hot water.
Yeah.
Cruise filters down a little bit slower down the country. That's what
do you know who's a big fan? Do you know who's a huge fan? Bodger. Big fan of Roseanne's.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the very kindred spirits or kindred souls in the
Yeah, that's what I heard now on the dark web.
The conspiratorium. Can I just want to get back to briefly just the Dennis O'Brien thing and the breach. We explained it so poorly that it's embarrassing and
more than any other one of his companies.
Well, essentially the point for us, I think maybe it's not a very exciting story for people outside of kind of the journalism business and media and all that.
No, John, no. It's a guy who owns an awful lot of businesses.
Yeah, but I think the minutiae and the personalities and stuff is a bit sort of inside baseball. It's a little bit.
Yeah, but if the media is kind of on trial for the last while, it's kind of like you want to know who's an interest in it and getting the news out there, fake news and stuff.
Yeah, of course. No,
so it really is a big issue.
Yeah, no, it is a huge issue, and it's a huge story. But I think it's going to be with us for the next few years. It's going to be a bit like Levinson.
Yeah, it's going to go on. It's going to be. It won't be a tribunal, but I think the fact that some of the people in the 19, like it's like the Hollywood 10, like the INM 19, they're Moriarty tribunal.
Yeah,
that's have to interrupt with some breaking news, genuine breaking news. Darts player Eric Bristow passed away a little earlier from a heart attack.
Did he?
Oh,
60 years of age. 60 years of age.
Oh,
60?
60.
Yeah.
That's astonishing.
Yeah.
Gosh. I would have had him as much older. I didn't realize he was.
I figured he was much older.
That's extraordinary.
Yes, 60 years of age.
Was he the best darts player of all time?
One of the most famous, for sure.
He was the first superstar.
Yeah.
But he was very young. John Parsons.
He had a very elegant throw, didn't he?
In between the gut.
Well, no, he had like a kind of quite a delicate little finger motion when he flied it.
That's right. He used to twist. Yeah.
He was the first darts player that used to be on kids' TV.
Right. Yeah.
Well, he was less brutish of a darts player because they're all lagerlouts, those darts players, but he was a more pleasant darts player. He was TV friendly.
Yeah. All those svelte players like Jockey Wilson and
the guy with all the jewellery.
Van Morrison wrote a song.
That's Bobby George. That's Bobby George.
Wrote a song about Jockey Wilson, but we won't talk about that now. But that's very sad about Eric Bristow.
It is, yeah.
As Vanessa said, the first darts superstar, the kind of Alex Higgins of the.
No, he's better.
No. There was no alcohol or any this type of addictions at all.
He was nice.
No.
He was world championship 6 times in 1980. So he was 23. 20.
He dominated the hockey in the 80s.
No, he was 23 when he was world number 1, and at 23 years of age, he was world number 1. So I suppose that led to his long career and made you think he was older than he was.
Yeah, amazing.
Because Bobby George was in his 60s, I think, before he won a world title.
Yeah.
Very cool too, isn't it?
Well, Phil Taylor's the big dart player now, isn't he? He's the
Yeah,
he's the world champion at the moment.
We might need to defer that to our sports experts.
Over Christmas.
yeah, we're
And
hoping.
At Christmas, everyone wants to.
Yeah,
just
the
look back,
lakeside.
no one having
That's
out
because
chat,
the lakeside is on at Christmas.
And the Ali Pali as well.
Yeah.
I was always impressed how impressive the math skills of the. Do you remember Bullseye?
Yeah.
Remember the referee guy, the reassuring voice. He had amazing math skills. He could have taken on Carol Vorderman with his arithmetic.
Yeah, they're like savants. There was like savant. Like Jim Bowen died last week as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's a
double
darts.
top to win there.
he had
Could have
some
been a
stories
dart
about the running of Bullseye. It was they didn't want people to win because they couldn't afford to keep giving prizes out each week.
That's okay. Here's what you could have won.
I remember Jim Bowen told a story about two drunken lads from Belfast who got access to the bar. They usually give guests a drink before the show, and the bar staff member went home early, and the two lads got knocked out early and started drinking behind the scenes. And then they obviously had lost, but you know the way when they want to go, someone goes for the special prize. If they turn it down, they bring back the contestants who missed out. So they all turned down the special prize. So they bring back these two drunken lads who I think had 20 quid in their pocket, and they weren't gonna play for the prize because they had the 20 quid and they were drunk. But yeah, tangent. But Jim Bowen had some great stories about that show. But I was always impressed with your man's math skills.
Yeah, well, it's been a bad time for darts then. Jim Bowen, Eric Bristow. It's
they split, didn't they? Didn't the darts split into two different organizations a few years ago? And Dennis Taylor was world champion in one, and Barneveld was world champion in the other.
Right.
No, that's snooker.
Dennis Taylor, yeah. Did
Dennis Taylor. Oh no.
He's the push postman.
Sorry, who's
Who needs to listen to Off the Ball on News Talk when you get all the sports news here?
It's BBC and Sky.
Well, I think it's dart break.
Taylor.
It's dart breaking news anyway. And thanks, Neil. Is there any other late breaking news on the non-dart?
Roseanne's back.
No one else has died. Yeah.
Roseanne is back a while.
Yeah, Johnny.
But I think they're looking at bringing back Tim Allen's show. Do you remember his Home Improvement?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Family Ties, maybe, but no way.
Yeah, actually, there's a good example about TV moving into big screen. John Goodman went from Roseanne to the big screen very successfully.
To the Big Lebowski.
Well, yeah, and he's also in Argo. He's in a load of movies.
Yeah. Great.
He's a great actor, actually. Yeah.
Blues Brothers 2000.
Okay, I'm just gonna attempt this again, just briefly, just the whole Dennis O'Brien thing, and then why perhaps myself and Olga are obsessed with it, and I think it's because nobody has really seen the affidavit except the people at the Indo. It seems you can't really go with it, but I'd say since we started Broadsheet, with the possible exception of Terry Prone, Dennis has kind of dominated our work on the site. Wouldn't you say, Olga?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah.
And so, like, he's just kind of freaked us out a lot. I mean, solicitors' letters and stuff on a Friday afternoon, and it's kind of. I just think if you've had any dealings with Dennis, it's not just chilling. It's just there's always this sort of dread in your stomach, isn't there? I mean, when we there was sorry, Olga. There was one day where he had 70 separate legal actions against journalists. And
I thought you were going to say you, John. I was like, Jesus.
But he had 70 gone on, and he was at the same time taking over a newspaper company, and at the same time, starting up this Frontline Defenders, which is a group to help
freedom of press or something.
It's almost like it's a bit like if you look at Stephen Ray's tweets, they've all been about Facebook data breaches up to the 23rd of March. It's almost like they're Olga, help me out here. There.
And he's now just talking about Roseanne, is he, rather than talking about Facebook?
Well, I suppose for us,
It's
anyway.
it's like the horrible mirror image type of scenario where they're projecting what they do onto others.
Yeah. It's kind of
Allegedly.
Yeah. So
But why can we talk
Look at
about
the European situation.
Sorry, lads, it's still not being featured on RT News.
No, it has a bit since the middle of the week, and they did a prime time slot in it tonight just to say. But I don't think it's been. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's been to the fore as it should have been at all.
Yeah.
The father story has taken.
The father,
up an awful lot.
that is a big story as well.
Yeah.
The whole thing seems like an expensive business, though, doesn't it? You know, I mean, which for a commercial company like Independent News Media, I mean, they must be like really worried, because I'd say, you know, like legal bills as well.
What price did it close at? Hang on, let me get the closing price.
They were down 6% or something. I think that Luke, that's the issue, and Vanessa touched on it. I mean, I don't think I&M can sustain the amount of compensation.
Well, if I was there, FC, I would be getting a valuation on the what I need to set aside today, and I'd be informing the shareholders and the stock exchange by end of business tomorrow.
Mm.
Down 5% today.
But one of the things is as well, Vanessa, as you said, it looks like it's something that will run and run, you know, and you know, it's going to be a sort of like a long sort of journey of an open checkbook.
But would you say, Vanessa, that since they've had this since the 23rd of March, that they've already had that conversation?
Well, if they did, it would have had to have been, the stock exchange would have to have been told by now.
Yeah.
Well, the board claimed they didn't know about this data breach, so that's
well, the CEO should have told them anyway.
But the CEO was
the CEO. You're talking about
Pitt.
Well,
Robert Pitt.
Brought it to the attention. He brought his concerns about the conversation of News Talk to someone on the board. Did he not? I thought.
Yeah, but we're talking about the data breach now. That's a different story. Then them being forced to try and pay 26 point something million for News Talk is one story.
Yeah.
The fact that the chair went and helped himself to a server and gave it to this crowd in Wales for nothing. I&M didn't get paid for that property. That data is their property. It is the property of the shareholders. Well, it's the property of the company of which the shareholders own. Okay, now the company is entitled to protection on its own. So those servers, the data on it, regardless of the names and the fact that you know them, and they now have a title, the Independent 19 or whatever, right? That is still property that was removed from this company and given away for nothing. Even if they had sold it, they'd be in less trouble.
Well, I don't think that it was taken out to make money. That's the point. I mean, I think it was for information.
No, I'm not saying about it was, but it was still the property of the company that was removed. I keep going back to, as the accountant, and looking at this from the company law side and the reporting side and the compliance side. And I know that's where you're getting frustrated with me.
Yeah, you do sometimes miss the picture. You're missing a bit of the picture there, Vanessa. Because
no, but you see, we're talking about Dennis O'Brien and the legal cases he does, and that he's a shareholder of this company. I actually looking now at the revenue and the accounts here and the value. I'm doing a quick number here. I'm actually not sure it could survive 100 lawsuits.
Well,
but
unless they have property assets outside Dublin.
Well, it's also
London, New York.
It's exponential as well, because like Olga could have emailed Carl Brophy back into 2014, and then is Olga then implicated? Would Olga be?
That's the point.
Well, I think, Olga, you're entitled to write a letter and ask them what data they had belonged to you.
I imagine there's a lot of people doing that. I imagine there's a lot of people.
Well, I think you should write a letter.
Well, if you
no
think
point
this
in
guy
me
Joe
wanting-
Webb, if you think this guy Joe Webb, who had been a CEO at the company, and he had 34,000 emails. That's just one guy. Going back to 1999.
God.
It's incredible, like really what may
May have happened.
what may happen, and whether these titles would even survive. I mean, whether the Independent and the Sunday Independent will actually survive.
That's probably the only thing that's of value is the title. Like the Irish press still has a value.
Well, the News of the World went out of business and closed. They closed themselves because of
The hacking scandal.
the hacking scandal. And
Yeah, but then you see the owner of that company, that title had other titles that he could flood the market with. So he still had product to fill that gap. I know the News of the World was apparently the biggest selling Sunday paper in the world. It was like 7 million or every weekend it used to sell. Isn't that right?
no, well, it was a readership of something like 7 million, but yeah, it sold about 3 or 4 million in Britain and in the UK. But the irrespective of how many titles Dennis has or how many, but I mean, it really is for me. I can't see how the Sunday Independent and the Irish Independent can survive. Not just under its present regime, but whether those titles are when all this unfolds, whether those titles will be too stained, too associated with data breaches and hacking their own staff.
Well, hacking their own staff leads to another set of legal breaches as well as just external people.
Sorry, Luke.
Just like the number of people, like that potentially can launch, sort of legal suits against independent, and a number of angles and perspectives from which they can come. Like it just sounds so expensive, and also sounds like it's something that they won't easily be able to assess. So I could see them having to, have an open checkbook on this for a number of years. Yeah,
and then there's a story, because Luke, we were talking briefly today. We were checking your mic levels this afternoon, and we were saying about Dennis O'Brien that the issue really isn't with Dennis. It's the issue is with the people who have enabled him over the years to sort of get away with what he's been getting away with, allegedly.
Well, what I was saying earlier on was that, I mean, as someone who runs businesses myself, I've always sort of admired a lot of what Dennis O'Brien has done. I think, like you don't easily become a billionaire, and I think
he did. He got a contract for Airco.
One second, Johnny.
No, I was just saying, like, I mean, I know a lot of stories of people who, he's talked to over the years, other people who have small businesses that he's helped out or thrown a bit of advertising or whatever. He's generally been supportive and helpful in ways, and like when I take that and the fact that he's someone that does stuff, like to me, that doesn't give him any sort of license to break the law or do anything, or morally, like not sort of do what he has to do, but it sort of gives him like a sort of a bit of admiration from my perspective.
Okay.
But then all this stuff, like like we're talking about, where sort of you start wondering when there's a bit of paranoia when you've all that power and you've all that money, and I mean effectively it doesn't cost you anything to sue everyone, because you have so much money that it doesn't cost you anything, and you put the fear of God into anyone you do. I mean, that's a peculiar and probably a sort of isolating position to put yourself in, so I don't know you.
I have a feeling that he got it from Dermot Desmond. When I was working in the Sunday Times in the 90s, when you were editing pieces on the Sunday Times internal system, if you wrote the words Dermot Desmond, there was like the lights, everything just went crazy on the computer, but you had to contact the legal department, and there was like, 15 separate actions going on between. So I think, a la Dermot Desmond, I think Dennis just, whenever his name is mentioned in a negative light, he would just sued out, as I say, there were 70 actions on a particular day that he was taking against all these journalists. And There are aspects, and what I say about the enablers are, you remember when, say, Gemma got fired from the Indo for doing her job? No other journalists like stood up for her then at the Independent. Nobody, apart from her husband, who walked.
Yeah, and actually, I was really thinking about that the other day. Actually, when there was a little protest outside the Indo for her.
There was 4 people.
There was John Wilson, the Garda whistleblower, Lucy O'Farrell, the mother of Shane O'Farrell, who was killed tragically, and 2 other women, Catherine Costello, former superintendent or former police officer in London, and another lady I can't remember. I think she was from Galway.
Yeah,
but there was no support.
No, not at all.
No visible support, at least.
And over the years, because it was like the austerity and the recession period, and people were saying, "Oh, his mortgages and all that," and you would perfectly understand. It's perfectly understandable. But isn't it amazing that there's not one journalist,
absolutely.
Although I should. Sorry, John. Just to be absolutely fair, I think just at her employment appeals tribunal when she took them to court, Tom Clonan was there, and he used to write about security matters for the Irish Times. So he was there in support of her, and Brendan Keenan I think was there. Was he from the Independent?
In support of Gemma? I
believe so. Yeah, that's why that's why Tom Clonan was there, and I think that's why Brendan Keenan was there. Yeah. Okay,
well, good on them. Two journalists, but I felt.
But in general, yeah, it was silent. It was silent.
And whilst it must be very difficult for the journalists who are dealing with the story within the Independent now, and I know Dervin MacDonald and Shane Phelan, is it, are leading the way on this, and the chances are that they were hacked themselves by their own staff. But there's another aspect. Like I read a piece by Shane Phelan about Carl Brophy, going back about 2 years or something. It's so nasty and so partisan.
Okay.
But how can he be writing now about this breach in any sort of impartial way? And also, I mean, I know it's a difficult situation for them all in there, but somebody has to actually make a stand.
John, surely the union, the NUJ, must have something to say about all this.
Well, yeah, Seamus Dooley has come out and said that it's horrendous and awful and all the rest.
Are they organising a?
But I mean, John,
are they organising a picket or anything like that on behalf of their members who have been hacked and?
I don't believe so.
Stuff that they didn't want to write.
Yeah, not yet. But speaking of Seamus Dooley, Dooley, sorry. But back then in 2014, when some people were talking about Denis O'Brien and there were concerns about media ownership, I remember, John, you and I spoke about it before. We were like, where is the NUJ?
Yeah.
It took a long time before there was any.
Are you members?
Public.
No, I was a member.
So was I.
I was actually a member in the London branch. Seamus Dooley seems to have been head of the NUJ for like 25 years or something. It's like Stalin or something. Like but I think the NUJ have been really ineffective, particularly around Denis. I have to say. Yeah. I suppose everybody's been ineffective because he has been. He's been enabled by very extremely powerful people, very influential.
Can I ask, even the chat pit actually, if you're watching, guys, is anyone a shareholder, even if it's just one share of INM, folks?
Well, a lot of those 19 are shareholders because...
well, their AGM is on the 18th of May. And I have a feeling it's just going to be shareholders only. It won't be open. And I'm just looking at their results for they're preliminary because the AGM approves the accounts, okay? But lads, if you're a shareholder, you're not getting a dividend.
Not this year, no.
No, you're not getting a dividend. And just actually one good thing, I'm just flicking through, it's a 40-page report here, but just know the CFO is still Ryan Preston, which is healthy in its own way. But it looks like they paid off their former CEO $1.5 million.
Vincent Crowley?
No, Robert Pitt.
Robert Pitt, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Vincent Crowley was brought before him.
Yeah, their new CEO has been appointed. He started, I'll tell you his name now.
Yeah.
And just to let you know that they took a massive devaluation on the Belfast Telegraph. It's huge. I wouldn't even have thought it was even worth that kind of money.
Yeah, they paid a lot of money for it.
Yeah, they took 12.7 million of the Belfast Telegraph masthead. I wouldn't even have thought it was worth that kind of money in the first place. You know?
Well, it was amazing what they were paying for newspapers 15, 10, even 10 years ago. You know,
newspapers are gone.
Yeah. Anyway, the new CEO here is Murdoch McLennan.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, no, he's the new
Murdo.
chair. Excuse me. And Michael Durley is the new CEO.
Yeah, he's a veteran at INM. Listen, we'll move on because it does seem a bit like a
yeah, but so if anyone is a shareholder, could they, and they wouldn't mind us going to the shareholders meeting, we'd need
do a few
They'll
votes
be
pops
in the
up
High Court on April 19th, Vanessa.
What?
They'll be in the High Court on April 19th.
So, where's my diary? Where's my court diary?
We do a few votes pops up.
April 19th, is it, John?
Okay.
When are they in down in my April the what, Olga?
19th.
That's a Thursday. That's a Thursday. Anyway, we'll figure it out.
Okay, yeah, great.
Sorry, folks.
Not at all.
But John, can I just say the point of the people that are employed there? Like, surely the oath that they took, and like knowing that this is just another thing. I listened to you, Vanessa, all hour and a half there. Like, it's just unbelievable that you could possibly work under those circumstances as a credible journalist and try to convince the reader or the listener to what you call news after that. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Can I make a correction, John? There, sorry, it's April 16th.
April 16th, yeah. That's Monday, isn't it?
Yeah, just I was wondering why it was a Thursday. Yeah, Monday is my. I'll be there. So actually, I was actually in Court 14 the day Colm Keaveney was adjudicated bankrupt.
All right, okay. Fascinating story, Vanessa.
Fascinating.
Anecdote as ever.
Small word.
Neil, I want to ask you, you had the improv show last week. How did it go? The one that you couldn't make.
Oh yeah, it was great fun. We're in Smock Alley. It was a lovely venue, Smock Alley. Yeah, it was a lovely turnout. They obviously, these people weren't tuned into Broadsheet on the telly.
Yeah,
but they came to see an improv show instead and had their minds blown.
Exactly. They'll never forget that night.
They never will.
Just wanted to mention about the Shayna thing. I just want to say hello to the mosh pit as well. Is there any questions or anything in the mosh pit going on?
Well, actually, do you know what this? I'll find out who asked it or said it, but apparently, John, your hair should have its own place on the panel.
I agree. I've lost.
Someone called Kim Kardashian is acting the right bollocks there.
Probably not the butterfly. You don't mean that's the real Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, well, it's spelt with a C. So, Butterfly Loon. There's somebody called Butterfly Loon. Has a serious crush on Johnny.
Really?
Loves, yeah. I meant to flag it last week, but
that's nice.
They don't like me at all. Anyway,
he or she obviously like my shy demeanor.
Yeah.
It should be pointed out as well that there are some people in the chat pit who do appreciate the work Broadsheet has done on the INM story. So just because most of the panel weren't listening doesn't mean that it was in vain.
That's fantastic. That's brilliant because we got a lot of stick last week with the Shayna story, and poor Shayna, who's a Broadsheet contributor and commenter, was foreperson of the jury at the Belfast rape trial, and after the verdict, there was a lot of comment. There was a lot of comment on the site, and Shayna came on not to discuss deliberations between the jury, but just to her own views about the case and why it went away the way it did. And a day later, then she was contacted by the Attorney General's office or the Lord Chief Justice office to say that would she remove the comments from Broadsheet that she had left? And Shayna said, "Who told you? Who said? Who complained?" They said, "Oh, the Irish Times had been on." So,
seriously, John, is there someone? Is there any paper left you haven't fallen out?
I know. It gets worse, actually. Jesus. If I can just.
They're telling tales on you.
It's funny when I saw
They
the
get their kneecaps done yet.
When I saw the thing mentioned in
It's just not
Independent,
What's
they
that,
didn't
Luke?
say, but when I saw the story mentioned in the Independent, they didn't say Broadsheet. They said had made comments on a website. Which was weird. They didn't even bother saying, you know.
Yeah, some news sites mentioned Broadsheet directly, but I noticed there was a couple that were very selective in not mentioning Broadsheet.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, do you know where Broadsheet is mentioned?
No.
On Dennis
11
O'Brien's
Commandments.
wiki. No, Dennis O'Brien's wiki page.
Oh, blimey. Nice we haven't got sued over that. So anyway, so Shayna,
What, John, no finish, yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, Shayna. Sorry.
So Shayna,
I know she watches the show, by the way, everybody.
Shayna, much respect, sister.
Shayna then, I thought it was fascinating because it was just it was a very thoughtful responses to people, just saying that, you know, a fascinating insight into a jury member of one of these big trials, and a particularly contentious trial. Anyway, so having been told it was the Irish Times, Shayna then contacted the Irish Times to find out what their complaint, you know, what their beef was. The person told them that it was a particular phrase that the Irish Times had raised with them. So then Shayna contacts and said, like, she's completely scared at this stage. Said, you know, that you're liable for arrest. The person on the phone told her from the Attorney General's office, and you know, it would be ironic that if Shayna was the only one who ended up in prison over this, over the events of that evening. But so then, what happened? Oh yeah, then the Irish Times ran with the story using Shayna's quotes, which were she was quite distressed in the quotes. Olga, am I right?
Yeah, she was. I'm sitting here waiting for cops to arrive.
Yeah. And then the next day, the Irish Times had this scoop. So they were gloating on Twitter about it.
Oh, I didn't see Twitter now.
Yeah, there were the journalist and the communities editor of the Irish Times were like quoting Shayna saying, "I'm waiting for the cops to arrive.
They're mocking her."
Yeah, and gloating about the fact that she was so distressed. Now, they hadn't pointed out in their article that it was they who had raised this matter with the people.
So they went and told tales.
Yeah, but more than that, it was like.
Or did they think?
In their
John.
article, they accused her of contempt of court offence, which was prejudicing any trial of hers, and also kind of defaming her, because she was very, very careful within the comments.
Well, I read one of the comments and I thought it was basically Shayna just checking in, lads. I was doing this. I was the foreman. That's why I haven't been around for ages. And A, B, C, and D. And then of course there was the few people in regulars that kind of didn't believe her. So I read the piece in the Irish Times, John, and I got the impression that nobody believed it was actually Shayna. So they decided just to cause a bit of rumpus and picked up the phone. What did they? And you know, I mean, but.
Well, I wrote then to the Irish Times and I said, look, you didn't even contact us. And they said that we did. And I said, we haven't got an email. Olga, have we had any?
No email. No.
No record of any emails from them. And I said, okay, so can you send me?
I thought you were Joe.
I beg your pardon?
I thought you were the new Joe that he maybe got in contact with them.
I don't know. Look, I mean.
There's two kids on the block. But go on, sorry, it's a good question, John.
We've had issues with the Irish Times going back years, but as I say, they don't even send us the cover, but they do have our email address, and we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook.
They can post on the board.
Oh, I know, anything in the comment section, but anyway, so I'm now in correspondence with the editor's office, not the editor, but his assistant, about all this, and we're just trying to get to the bottom of it. So we hope to have a piece maybe by tomorrow or Monday on it. And very sorry to Shayna. And
How's she now?
she's meeting her lawyer tomorrow. The Attorney General's office were on to her today. And the PSNI were on to me last week about getting all of Shayna's comments since last June. And I've asked Shayna for her blessing.
Well, that's fair enough. But they're checking to make sure she didn't release anything publicly during the trial.
Yeah.
Once she was I suppose I tend to think that she did do that, but at the same time, I think they're entitled to check that in the interest of everybody. You know.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
But I get the. I think the Irish Times actually didn't believe Shayna was telling the truth, so they just picked up the phone and said to the judges, the Queen's judges, the Queen's judiciary, and said, "Excuse me, there's this crowd down here telling everybody that's." Could you come down and shut them up there? Could you give them a clatter? You know, that's the sort of stuff that would have got you kneecapped or up there at one point.
Well, I think
this is the second time you said that, Vanessa. You're obsessed with kneecapping tonight.
You get a mixed grill. Shayna would know what a mixed grill is. It's ankles, knees, and elbows.
Well, I think you know, Shayna is very loved on the site, or much, you know, cherished, kind of on the site, and
she's a bit of a celebrity, isn't she? She works with all these famous people.
Well, she has worked with all these famous people in the past. I mean, in a kind of television as well and stuff like that. So she's not naive to the way of the media, but I think she's very disturbed by what the
that's very traumatic.
It is actually, yeah. But we'll get to the bottom of it, and we'll find out what happened.
Stay strong, Shayna.
Yeah, stay strong. I'm gonna end off early tonight. Is there anything you need to plug before we leave? Johnny, Luke, we need to see some of your etchings from the.
Do we have any newspapers, lads?
Oh, newspapers. Olga, sorry, I beg
we
your
do. Yeah. Can I share? Yeah.
I'll get you up on screen here. Yeah, I'll get you, Olga, so you can do the talking.
I'll just quickly show you. That's tonight's bit of work.
Wow.
That's
the
view over Porto.
Oh my gosh!
So
that's lovely. Is that what Porto looks like?
Yeah.
It looks very like Tullamore.
Yeah.
So that's the twin team there, Luke.
It's the Tullamore of Portugal. Yeah.
We're definitely going there. We're definitely going there for a weekend, or lads.
That's fantastic, Luke. Are the papers up, or will I?
Sorry, I'm just actually adding the Times Ireland. It just came in there. Sorry, just take a second. But on the Examiner, the main story there is perfect storm on pay could derail budget. So that's ahead of the. Sorry, now I'll just get there. I just updated that. So maybe you might be able to refresh that in a second.
Would you like me to refresh it?
Yeah, if you can, John.
Sure. 1 second.
I'm just trying to get this thing up. But yeah, so the story there, an Examiner anyway, perfect storm on pay could derail budget. Ministers say they are on war footing as election looms, just by Daniel Lachlan there. So Finance Minister Pascal Donoghue is facing into a perfect storm of pay demands from teachers, doctors and nurses, which is threatening to derail his 3.2 billion giveaway budget in October. So obviously they just don't know how to split the budget.
I wanted to say just my last word on the Dennis thing. I think there will be an election called very, very soon, and I think it'll be related in a way to taking attention away from what's going on at INM. Vanessa, you're looking skeptical.
Is he running for president?
No.
No, actually,
what would be the reason, John? What would be the reason for Fianna Fáil pulling the plug?
No, it'll be Fine Gael.
Fine
Fine Gael will be doing a favour. They'll be doing a favour to. But do you know? But there was something about.
Sorry, Vanessa. I'll get. is the Irish Times? Will I refresh the Friday's page?
Sure, yeah. Just to say, there's one other story there in the front of the Examiner by Juno McEnroe. Flanagan speaks to Hayes as compensation talks ongoing. So that's Joanne Hayes from the Kerry Babies case. So Charlie Flanagan has personally spoken to her as arrangements for compensation continue to be negotiated. So that's just the top line from that.
That's great.
And down the bottom, Conor McGregor was last night wanted for questioning regarding an incident at the Barclays Centre in Brooklyn, it says a New York Police Department source.
Okay. Did you want me to put up the
Times Ireland? Sure, yeah.
Did you want me to actually put it in the post?
No, I put it in the post. It should be there. Is it not there? No.
No.
Let me get out. Sorry, it's just being a bit slow.
Okay.
But yeah, the front page story of the Times is thousands of jobless hit by benefits crackdown. Claimants not seeking work face welfare cut. It's a story by Jennifer Bray. 50 job seekers a day are having their benefits cut for failing to cooperate with government attempts to secure them employment. In the first 8 weeks of this year, just over 3,000 claimants had their rates cut compared with 3,400 for the entirety of 2013. Wow. If the figures continue at this rate, almost 20,000 job seekers will have had their payments cut by the end of the year.
And Torres New will get a big bonus.
It's incredibly depressing, that, isn't it?
Well, there you go. That's the haves and have-nots. Another battle. There has to be highlighted.
Well,
the have-nots have lost that one as well.
Okay, Olga?
I was just going to say, I just got a message there. It emerges that Charlie Flanagan's very busy talking because some of the survivors of the abuse of the basketball coach in Waterford, John, his name, can you remember?
Keneally.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, forgive me for forgetting. Apparently, Charlie Flanagan had a very constructive meeting with some of those survivors today.
Great.
So we'll learn more about that tomorrow.
And we hope to have one of those survivors on the show soon.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. And just to say, John, so the tribunal starting on Monday, and I won't dive into any rabbit hole, but John McGuinness, we know what he's going to say about the car park. After that, it'll be Cannon's driver, the Tuesday. Wednesday, John Deasy from Fine Gael will be up. We're not too sure what he's going to say. Gerald Keane will be giving evidence, and on the Friday, there'll be the Director of Communications at the Guards who will be giving evidence. And it's been said that at that PAC meeting where he made that disgusting remark, apparently in a conversation amongst other Gardaí, including this guy McLinden, it's been said that, according to Dave Taylor, that Callan said to McGuinness, or called Maurice McCabe a kitty fiddler. So that's what's been alleged. Callan is denying it, but I'm guessing that's why Andrew McLinden is in, well, amongst other reasons, to say if he heard that or not. But, so there'll be a lot next week.
Brilliant, and that's starting on Monday. So we'll have a full report from you on Thursday. And I think the Gerald Keane thing is going to be very, very, very interesting in terms of, certainly in terms of more that, like what we were talking about tonight, the media and.
Yeah.
I think I might nip in for that one. I'll get.
Yeah. It might be
I'll bring the tea and sandwiches.
Bring your bling. It's Gerald Keane, so it's all bling that day. I'm gonna have to leave early.
Before we go, can I just congratulate the broadsheeter Clampers who got engaged or who's getting married in a week? He got engaged. We only announced it, I think.
Yeah, Clampers outside.
All about clamping then.
Yeah, so just to wish him a broadsheet. Happy wedding.
Broadsheet commentator Clampers outside is getting married next week. It's an incredible thing because.
Did you meet her on the site? Oh, please go on, tell us. We have a broadsheet wedding. We have our broadsheet wedding.
I don't think so, but we've had a couple of people actually, but none of the relationships have worked out.
Where's the after?
Okay, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Please join us tomorrow on the site if you like, and are here next week. Big thank you to Johnny Keenan in Kilkenny, Luke Brennan in Porto, Portugal, Neil Curran in Dublin, Olga Cronin from the Sheet in Dublin, Vanessa Foran, Celebrity in Dublin also. Thank you so much, and Don't breach your data now. Don't breach your staff's data. Okay. Thank you.